This is the moment I find out whether an idea from months ago will actually work in real life. But how do we get here? I was scrolling through YouTube one day when I came across a video from Break It Yourself where he put LED strips on a stroller and synced those lights to Disney's Happily Ever After fireworks.
I have to do it.
Which is a great idea, and you should definitely check out Richard's video. It also gave me the idea to put lights on our stroller, but sync them to the Boo to You Halloween parade. And that's exactly what we're gonna do to our stroller right here. Before we can get the lights to function on the stroller, we need to talk about hardware. But if you're not interested in how to configure the hardware and some of the issues that I ran into with using a Mac, go ahead and skip to this time code below where I'm putting the lights on the stroller itself. A lot of the hardware that I'm using is exactly the same as what Richard from Break It Yourself did, including these LED pebble string lights. You can get them really cheap from AliExpress, but it takes a while for them to actually get delivered to you, or they're kind of pricey on Amazon, but you can get them in a day or two. Now that we got the LEDs, we need to talk about the brain that's actually going to run them. This is an ES PixelStick V3 that I got from Fork and I. You can buy this on their website, and they have really good instructions for how to actually configure this, but they work really well on Windows, and I'm running a Mac and ran into a few additional issues. For one, I did need to download the latest version of Java 8. You don't need the driver, but while it says that Python 3 is installed by default on current distributions, it wasn't on mine. So I did have to go to the Python website and download Python 3. One additional thing that I ran into and found answers to, thanks to a forum post on the Fork and I website, was that Python 3 wasn't natively being pulled by the flashing software. You have to pull up Terminal and create what are called symlinks to Python 3 so that it knows to run that correctly. All of that was available on this forum post in this section right here. So you will need these pseudo rights, and you have to create that symlink to Python 3, but name it Python. This code worked exactly the way I needed it to, and will save you a headache, hopefully. Once you're ready to actually flash the device, you can take the brain off and connect it via micro USB to your computer. Once you have your brain plugged in, we need to flash it with all the software and give it the network connectivity. But you may run into your Mac not recognizing the Fork and I developer, but you can open it up through Terminal, which is actually also in this forum post. You need to change to where you have that flashing software saved. I saved it to my desktop. In Terminal, you use CD, which is change directory. So we can CD to my desktop. Once there, you can type in java-jar, and it's called ESPS flash tool. Once the tool comes up, you can fill it out with what your Wi-Fi network's name is and the password. The serial port, you'll want to be a USB serial. So once you have all that selected and you've done all the Python stuff, you can click this flash device button, and it should upload everything to the device itself. The very last issue that I ran into was with the SD card itself. This was an old micro SD card from a camera or GoPro that I used to use, but it was not formatted correctly. It was formatted for Mac. So instead, you'll need to use your disk utility to format this in the FAT format. Once your device is flashed, we can go ahead and unplug it and start wiring things up. You can go ahead and plug the brain back into the rest of the ES Pixel board and take your formatted SD card and plug it in to the bottom. The rest we need to wire up to these very helpful screw terminals in here. They've got them labeled on the bottom, but I wrote the labels on the top as well, since that seemed a little bit easier to wire. The first thing we need to do is get power to it. Like Richard, I decided to strip an old USB cable, taking off the data cables and knowing that red was power and black was ground. So you've got power connected, but we also need to add the LEDs themselves. Fortunately, they come with this connector and it already has pre-stripped wires that can go directly into the board. On mine, there's a small set of green dashes on one of the cables. That one is ground, the middle is your data positive, and the last one is going to be your power for 5 volts. With everything wired, we can go ahead and plug everything up. We need to do one last little bit of configuration to the brain itself. You should have gotten an IP address when you flashed the device, and now that's connected to power, we can connect to it with a browser. One thing you want to make sure that you have is this file management tab. If you don't have that, the device is not recognizing the micro SD card, so go ahead and reformat it again. On this device setup, we need to add a couple of things so that we can connect to it from XLights and actually get our show on the device. You want the primary input to be DDP, the secondary input to be FPP remote. Output 1 is WS2811, and then I have it set to play this PixelStick testing sequence that we'll look at in a second. With everything connected, you should be able to discover a new device and set it up here. That's where we need that DDP protocol. With everything wired and configured, we can run a test on the LEDs themselves to make sure that we actually have everything set up before we get to a big show and run into issues there. So I made this very simple layout. If everything is configured correctly, we should, based off of this sequence, see the top and bottom in red for a few seconds, the middle in green, all 3 strands in blue. Plug it in and see how it's working. The yellow light's on, we should see red, and we don't, it's green. We should see green, it's not, it's red, but then we should see blue. Blue is mapped correctly, white flashing, which is exactly what we wanted to see. So let's jump into the software and see what we can do to fix red and green, because those seem to be flipped. Right here on color order, it's set to RGB. Since R and G seem to be flipped, you can do GRB. Go ahead and save those changes to the device, and now we're seeing red, then we'll see green, then we'll see blue. Awesome. So with everything configured, we can finally start putting the LEDs on the stroller and get our actual sequence uploaded so that we can make things look cool. We need to figure out how to get the lights on the stroller itself. And we love our stroller for Disney because it's modular. We can take the seats off, we can fold this up, and it's really compact for traveling. But that does not lend itself very well to putting lights on and syncing them and having them in the same place every time. So we need to figure out how to build a frame that we can put on the stroller easily, keep all the lights exactly where I want them to be. To keep the frame nice and light on the stroller, we're gonna use some 1/2-inch PVC pipe around the edges, but I wasn't quite sure what to do around the sunshades until my daughter gave me the idea to use some flexible PEX piping. Fabric tape measures are great for curves like this. This will probably be really surprising, but I think I overcomplicated the project. I had all these ideas about how things would go together and it would look really cool and it would be quick release, but I had only thought about it maybe 10% of how much I needed to, and finally realized it just wasn't gonna work. So I texted a friend of mine to ask advice, and she came up with a brilliant solution. Christmas light gutter hooks, which I already have a bunch of, and they work really, really well. The only thing I think I'm gonna change is to cut this end off so that it doesn't get hooked on anything or poke my kids when they're getting in and out of the stroller. Off camera, I measured where I thought the lights would go on the stroller itself so that I could build out this model in XLights. Now that we have it modeled and grouped away so that we can control different components of the stroller, we can actually move on to sequencing, which I'm going to start now. I decided to run a quick test and the LEDs are all working, plugged into the PixelStick and running off of the battery bank that we're gonna take with us to Disney World. So the next thing we need to do is put them all on the stroller so we can actually see what it's gonna look like in the real world, which I'm really excited to try out. I picked up these black command strips that have Velcro on one side, so I'm gonna use these and attach them to snack trays and the sides, and to another piece of Velcro, I'm gonna attach these little LED hooks. I wanted to put the PixelStick into an enclosure so that it wouldn't just be a board out in the open. So I laser cut some pieces, but I want to cut some holes in those as well to accept a power cord and cut a hole for the actual DMX connection that will connect directly to all of my LED lights, making all of this a little bit more modular. I don't think I mentioned, but we're also making a stroller sign that's going to go on the back and have LEDs go all around it. They're already mapped, but we need to glue the LEDs to this sign. Now that the lights are on the stroller, I noticed that some of my marks for different section splits were a little bit off. Fortunately, I wrote all of them down and I can adjust the model in XLights, fortunately without changing any of the timings that I spent several hours on. It's a little bit hard to see, but I've got a test script running right now to see how all my segments work, and they look to be good. So we're gonna try it out synced to the music. Hopefully this works. Okay, we're gonna try this lights off just for kicks and giggles. Ha, it works. So unfortunately, the lights didn't actually work out. I don't know why, but something got corrupted with the file and it was looping after about 1 minute for an 18-minute parade. So I'm going to try again at the second one, but if I can't diagnose the issue, I don't really know what to do. So we'll see. I'm back from Disney, which unfortunately means I couldn't get the stroller lights to work, which is devastating. But before I show you what the lights were supposed to look like, along with some footage of the parade, here's what I think went wrong. The first thing was I didn't take weather into account. Florida is really humid and it rains just a little bit right before I was trying to use the lights, so I should have built a waterproof enclosure. Number two, in my effort to have an enclosure with a removable lid, I decided to add magnets, but I think that these magnets are a little bit too powerful and they may have done something to the SD card that I had in there. And the third issue was me. I didn't really fully understand how to connect to the ES PixelStick. I think that kind of hampered me from being able to troubleshoot on site. Since I can't show you the lights working in the park, I'm gonna show you some clips from the parade that I took and what the sequence was supposed to look like from XLights. So while this project is unfortunately a fail, it did kind of get me over the hurdle of opening up XLights and trying to learn it initially for the first time and getting something to work on an ES PixelStick, at least at my house. If you want to see another Halloween project that is still Disney inspired, I made these Haunted Mansion tombstones last year and they've held up really well, and we're excited to put those out in our yard this year again. If you're interested in seeing that video, I've got pulled up for you right over here, so I'll see you in that video.